like the 49ers, Drew, what do you need to do, or what's the most important element, I guess, of your game plan heading into a defense like that?
I think execution is probably the biggest part. Their scheme is not overly complicated. They know what we're going to do. We know what they're going to do. I think they know what they're going to do, and they do it at such a high level. It's so well coached. Obviously, the talent is there. So a lot of this game is going to come down to execution of, in the run game, sustaining blocks and making guys miss. In the passing game, pass protection, decision making, all the things that go into that. But it is definitely an execution type of game.
Obviously, this is a game where when you play these divisional opponents, there's some familiarity. How do you take advantage of that in some cases?
It's a mix. That's the game theory. They have familiarity with us, too, having played the previous game. So I think it's a mix of stuff you did well, stuff maybe you had up that you didn't get to, but also seeing, hey, what have they struggled with lately, and making sure that you're putting together a plan that gives those guys the best chance for success.
Do you go into any of these games knowing that, okay, they're going to see us again, so we're going to keep stuff in the back pocket so that, that they're not going to see this stuff again?
If you're up by about 35 or 40 points, I think sometimes you do that. I think other than that, you're just giving your guys every chance to succeed and go out there and win the game.
This home stretch of the season, what tangibles are you looking for from this offense?
Win. I think that's always going to be the goal. We want to make sure that we're putting up one more point than the other team by any means necessary. I think that attitude, that mentality, I think has to be instilled every single day you're in the building. So I think that's going to be our focus this week, certainly, and moving forward.
You mentioned sustaining blocks and the offensive line. How have you seen that group? I know there's been some change at left guard, obviously, but how have you seen that group progress throughout the season?
I think they've done a really nice job. It's not an easy job, especially in this division with some of the fronts that we've had to play. They've played some really good players, but I think they've done a really nice job. The effort, continuing to compete. You saw the way that they finished the game. I think it was, 12, 14 straight runs there to end the game. Just the attitude and the mentality that they play with, I think that's something that they've really done a nice job of embracing collectively and continuing to build as we move through the season.
Going back to the game against the Steelers, that Michael Carter third down run, JG pointed out as a big time play, that literally swung the momentum in a sense. What have you seen from him in this kind of this new role?
You hit on it. That run was certainly critical to the drive. 3rd and 7, big conversion, allowed us to go down and get points there at the end of the half, which really kind of, as you said, kind of swung the momentum in the football game. He's always ready. No matter what the role is, no matter what the job, whether it's a 1st and 2nd down carry, whether it's being in there. And he had some really big reps in pass pro again against the Steelers on 3rd down. He had the big run on 3rd down. I think his energy, his mentality of just there's no job too small, no job too big, always being ready and making the most of the opportunities. And certainly in the meeting room and on the field, I think his energy is good. It's a great presence.
How have you seen James has James taken him under his wing in a sense, or?
I think James is the leader in that room, so I think guys look to him at all times. I mean, he's certainly that type of player. He's done it for such a long time in this league at a position where that's not always easy, and continuing to produce and continuing to play with the energy and the love of the game that he has. So I think certainly, whether it's saying under his wing or certainly guys look to him and I think lean on him from that standpoint, I think is always going to be true.
At this point in the season, do you want to see, is there a balance to be struck between the guys that are already playing a lot and then the guys that we haven't seen a ton of this season as we head down the stretch and maybe get them some action on offense and defense?
No, I think it goes back to the earlier question. We're always going to put the guys that give us the best chance to win. That's going to be true every single time we step on the field on Sunday, and so this week's going to be no different.
Have you noticed a difference in the attitude or approach from early in the season till now, sitting 3-10 on the year with 4 games to go? Have you noticed anything?
I haven't. I think the guys have done a really nice job of, and it's been that mindset and kind of the message that we've kind of instilled since day one is our goal is to improve at every moment. And that's going to be true in April 15th. It's going to be true on December 12th. It's going to be true after every single game, win or lose. I think if you're going to get to where you want to go long-term in this league, that has to be your mindset. And I think the guys have done a nice job of sticking to that.
When you look at offenses around the league, specifically the Niners and Dolphins, are you a big fan of all the options and motions and jets and sweeps and craziness that they do? Is that something you want to integrate into this offense eventually?
Absolutely, and I think it's something, if you look throughout the year, that we have used at different times, especially depending on the opponent, depending on who's healthy. But it's, anything that we can do to make it hard on the defense. And if that's motions, if that's shifts, if that's certain formations or personnels, we want to do as much of that as possible within reason to make sure we're still doing the things that we're good at, but putting stress on those guys. And certainly they've been able to do that at a high level throughout the year.
Guys to do that. Rondale, Hollywood, even Dortch, maybe Connor not so much, but and Kyler. I mean, how could you take their skills and augment that through this different kind of
I think that's a big part of it. You using guys that are fast, that can, twitchy, that can go stop, 0 to 60 in a moment's notice. I think really certainly makes it hard on defense as you move them around the formation.
When you have an offense, people talk about, like early in the season, we want to find the identity of our offense. Is that based on the scheme everybody's running and they just need to learn it, or does that turn into whatever that season's offense ends up being because of injuries, because of how players are playing, that kind of thing?
I think it's the second part more than anything. It's a combination of the roster's different year to year. So, to some extent, it's a new 11 out there, a little bit, depending on, off-season transactions and everything that goes down. So a little bit is just finding out who are you and what are you best at. Certainly injuries play a big part in that based on who's up and who's healthy. And I think your opponents change every year. Certainly your division opponents don't, but knowing that you're going to play a different division in the NFC, a different division in the AFC, and the matchup might be a little different in terms of what they give you, what you need to take advantage of, and then you realize as you go through that process kind of what you're good at, what you need to focus on. And as we've seen, it does still change week to week as you go through the rest of the season.
How do you evaluate everything that Kyler had to get through to even be ready to play? And now the 4 games obviously he's played, and now looking forward to the Final Four.
So kind of like, how do you evaluate what he's been through over the last X amount of months? Yeah, and how he's doing. I think he's done a really nice job of handling an extremely hard situation. I mean, to go through that rehab, having torn my ACL myself, and I know we talked about that briefly, like that's not an easy task, just physically, to get yourself back to a position where you can play NFL football at the level he's capable of and the level he's put on tape, I think is really impressive. And then certainly while you're going through that process, to learn a new language, to learn, to integrate with new teammates, and then to jump on the field, over less than a month ago, week, whatever it was, 10 or 11, I think that's a really tall task, and I think he's done a great job of handling it and embracing it and making the most out of it.
Going back to the motion question, how much of that helps Kyler reveal a coverage scheme? How much of that creates mismatches for you?
It's a mix, and I think it's always going to be dictated based on kind of who you're playing and what you feel like you're getting the advantage from. Sometimes you want to know the look. Is it 1 high, 2 high? Is it man zone? How do we need to manufacture that based on the way we move guys in the formation? Other times it may be matchup based to say, hey, we want to get this guy off a press. We want to make sure he's matched up on this corner. We want to try to take advantage of Trey in this location, little things like that. I think it's kind of finding that balance each week to make sure you're doing the things to be difficult to defend.
Back to Kyler for a moment. There's a clip going around when you were on with Adam Schefter and said that in your mind, there's no doubt he's a franchise-type quarterback. Can you amplify on that for us?
Yeah, I think that is what it is. Like, I would almost reiterate that statement, I guess. Probably not the answer you want, but he is. He's a franchise quarterback. I think just the way he carries himself, the way he plays the game, the way he leads, just everything about the type of person and player he is warrants that. I think he's done a really nice job of embracing that and continuing to grow and improve, as we talked about, as we want everybody in that room to do.
Go ahead, Howard.
Does it provide some excitement, anticipation, again, going back to knowing what he's been through, knowing that whatever happens, the last 4 games happens, but getting into an off season where it's normal for him and really making some progress from there?
Absolutely. I've been really excited every time he walks out on the field on Sunday to watch him go play. I think he's that type of player. I think he puts in the time to be that type of player. So I don't think that excitement for me is going to change.
Is it hard knowing that these kind of questions ultimately are going to come up for coaches to kind of wrestle with, in addition to everything else you guys are doing?
No, it's part of the job. I think that's the biggest part of being an NFL coach is trying to put your team in the best position to be successful every single week you step on the field. So those questions at every position are going to come up throughout the year, throughout the offseason. That's just the nature of the beast.
There's been a lot of questions for the first 3 years of Kyler's tenure, I guess, of his maturity, his leadership. Have you noticed leadership from him? I mean, have you noticed anything that would be negative about those things?
No, he's done a phenomenal job, I think, from that standpoint, as long as I've walked in the building in terms of, as we said, attacking the rehab, being a great teammate, trying to put himself in the best position to help the team. And then I think you've seen the leadership qualities in terms of him putting his arm around guys, coaching guys, talking to guys about different things within the offense, trying to be that guy, and I think he's done a really nice job of that. So certainly excited about that and would expect that to continue.
Nick, would you face a team like the Niners with so many offensive weapons? What do you try to do? What's your base? I mean, you're trying to take one guy out of the game plan. What do you try to do?
Yeah, you got to play a holistic game and be able to do a lot of different things, right? They're hitting on all cylinders with run game, pass game, their screen game. They can do a lot of different things with a lot of different people. And they do a good job of spreading the ball around. They do a good job of moving people around, and you have to be able to really play good football in every aspect of it. And it is hard to pinpoint, hey, let's just take this away and make them be well, they're going to beat you with that whatever way they're one-dimensional. So you got to have a holistic approach to be able to stop the run game, stop the pass game, get them in third downs, get them off on third downs. They're doing a really good job on third down as well. So it takes a complete game to compete with these guys.
Fundamentally sound.
Fundamentally sound, tackling, right? They're very good with the ball in their hands. So, when you do get in situations, whether that's in the box or in the open field, you have to be able to take good angles, get the ball down now, and not have those, what could be a 3-yard gain turn into an 8-yard gain, or an 8-yard gain becoming a big explosive play.
Going off of that a little bit, how do you slow down a guy like Brock Purdy, especially considering when you guys played in week 4, he only had that one incompletion?
Yeah, he's playing extremely efficient right now. He processes things well, and so just like any opponent or any quarterback that you go against, you want to be able to affect that quarterback in many ways, whether that's his decision-making, the pressure you get on him, all that plays a role, and he's, playing at a really elite level right now. So you have to try to do those things throughout the game to kind of throw him off.
What does it tell you when the 49ers have thrown the fewest passes in the league and yet have the third most passing yards?
Yeah, it means they're playing really good. They're explosive, right? And maybe some of the reason that those pass numbers are down is they've had some big leads at the end of games, and they're almost in 4-minute offense relatively early. But what that tells you is that they're explosive, whether that's pushing the ball down the field or catch and run, and it shows up all over the tape. So yeah, that's kind of what that story tells.
Is a big part of that with the explosives that, I think the average in the league is somewhere around 11 yards per completion, maybe a little higher, maybe approaching 12. They're at 14. That's a large number. Is that a big part of that's the explosives?
Yeah, it's the explosives. Like I said, it's the explosives pushing it down the field, and it's the explosives with the ball in their hand. It's the explosives off screens. And that goes kind of back into that fundamentals of tackling too, right? Like you can't allow a 5-yard completion become one of those explosive passes. As well as soon as you try to get aggressive, take that away, they're going to throw it over your head. So they're doing a really good job of being complete with their pass game, and that's why their numbers are where they are.
As a defensive coordinator in the same division, can you appreciate that offense of theirs, or you look at it and say, oh, I hate this crap?
Both. I do appreciate it. I feel like this division has really good offensive minds, including Drew, but I don't have to go against Drew outside of practice. And that's really one thing that I do like that a lot, because I feel like it makes myself better, makes a coaching staff better, makes our players have to prepare and improve their game as well to go against not just good schemes, but really good players. And I feel like the division is filled with really good offensive minds and offensive weapons and good offensive lines. And, that challenge is, as much as it is it's stressful, it's also, if you love to compete, you love those opportunities.
With a guy like Dennis Gardick, why is it important to have a guy like that on your roster?
Well, I think that's a pretty layered question, because there's a lot of elements that Dennis brings. Obviously, the leadership is critical for us as a team and as a defense, and in special teams. He plays a huge role there as well. But his versatility gives you a lot. He is a guy that I feel like, hey, go rush and win, right? He's a guy that can win his one-on-one. So brings a lot of different flexibility schematically, because he is talented in many regards in coverage and pass rush and in the run game. So he makes you versatile, and he helps you win games because he goes out there and wins one-on-ones and makes plays.
You mentioned going against Drew in practice. How has he made you a better defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before. Just me and Drew go back a long ways. When I first was with the Vikings, Drew was already there, and it's the conversations in the building that help kind of formulate some ideas and, bring you different insight, or you learn things through there. And then out at practice, he's going to do things, whether that's schematically or just the fundamentals of how they play with the receivers, with the O-line, the quarterback, that make you be on your P's and Q's with your rules and your adjustments and your fundamentals, everything like that. So I think there's a lot of elements to that, and I hope I'm providing the same thing to him and making him better. And really that goes for all of the coaching staff. You know, it's not just Drew, it's for the defensive coaches, it's everybody on that offensive staff, and it's JG, and then it's, you know, hopefully we reciprocate that for them. So, you know, you get the other side of the ball. I think it's the best way to learn about your side of the ball and understand how that they can present issues for you and how they're trying to attack you.
Overall, how do you see that group of edge rushers progressing through the season?
Yeah, I think they all improve, and they all know that they got elements of their game they got to keep getting better at. I want to see them continue to go out there and be versatile like we're asking them to do, and when they get those opportunities to win one-on-ones, they go win their one-on-ones, whether that's in the run game or in pass rush. And, you know, this week presents a great challenge. They got really good run blockers on the edge, whether that's the tackles or the tight ends. And then obviously in pass rush, you know, they're going to be going against one of the best in the league. And it's a good challenge to see, hey, where are we with our ability to play at a high level, right? This team, you have to play at a high level to compete, and they're going to need those guys to play at that level.
When it comes to stopping their run game, Christian McCaffrey better than the first matchup, are there things you can do differently, or is it as simple as technique and better tackling?
Yeah, I think it's always a combination of things. Obviously, when you play an opponent for a second time in a year, you're going to look at things from the first game on what went good or what didn't go good, or things that were, you know, good but we can improve on, or hey, this was good, we got to be better with our technique here. So layered in a lot of different ways. We need to be a little bit more efficient in the run game than we were that first game, and you know that's something that whatever those changes are, or playing with better technique, that's got to show up on Sunday.
When it comes to the run scheme itself, how similar is the Niners to what you see when you play the Rams? Those two run schemes.
It's a little different, to be honest. You know, that for one, personnel uses are a little different, but I think overall, those two run schemes are, in my head, completely separate of each other. I think Sean, you know, I know they're kind of coming from similar tree. I think Sean's done different things with his run game than what Kyle's currently doing.
With McCaffrey as a receiver, is he just simply running back, catching the ball, or does he have a certain level of receiver skills that make him more dangerous?
Yeah, he's got receiver skills. Out of the backfield or split out wide, he is, to me, when he's out wide, he's a high-level receiver. So it's not just, hey, this guy out of the backfield is an issue. No, when you split this guy out, this guy's got a route tree that can win one-on-ones versus DBs. So he's a complete, you know, he is a complete running back, elite runner, elite pass catcher, and he can pass pro.
Coming up the bye with these next 4 games, what's the message, or what are you trying to accomplish as a unit?
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on the 49ers 1 week at a time, trying to figure out how we can win this game.
Jonathan Ledbetter talked to us after his Walter Payne Man of the Year nominee and talked about the role that he has this year. And as someone who has obviously stepped up in the community and then also stepped up on the field, how would you describe what his role has become at this point in the season?
Yeah, Jonathan is a leader of the defense. I think he has been since we stepped foot. Since I stepped foot here, it was easy to see that this guy is a great character guy, loves football, sets the tone for how to practice, how to prepare, how to train, but then also obviously he's a leader in our community. So Love Led, you know, he's a important piece of on the field, in the locker room, and in the community. So really happy to see him be nominated for that award. Very deserving. He's as advertised, I'll say that.
Nick, it was a big stop by the D in the Pittsburgh game, 4th and 1, down the other end. Given the things that teams can do now, you know, what's the key to getting down there and stopping that play?
Yeah, you know, there's obviously teams are going to have their schematic stuff that they have in that situation, and Pittsburgh actually had some unique stuff that they did down there. But I think ultimately the most important thing when you're trying to stop inches is yards at a premium, and that line of scrimmage needs to get knocked back. And I think on that 4th and 1 stop, we had some good knockback. It takes everyone up front to knock that thing back, and then the second level's got to knock that ball carrier back. And I thought we did a great job of guys were throwing it in there. We got great. I think Kevin was knocking it back. Roy knocked it back pretty well, and then Buddha came in with a late shove, and then you can see, that pile doesn't move because it's hard if that line of scrimmage change. That second level is not going to be able to affect that play. So it starts with knockback up front, and the second level coming and getting on the legs of the ball carrier and not allowing that hidden yardage to show up because all it takes is an inch in that situation.
How much of the difficulty in going against that 49er offense, aside from the obvious talent, is just being able to attack and go against their whole blocking approach to doing things, whether it's in the run or the pass?
Yeah. You're saying just what's the challenge that they present? Yeah, they're unique with what they do. I don't know if anyone really quite does it like them. Maybe Miami, with how they can manipulate points, with the different combinations they can have on the front side of their outside zones, how do they deploy their personnel, how they motion pre-snap to get to all the same concepts, but it looks different to you as a defense. Like all those things combined, buying angles, making all the blocks look the same, whether it's gap scheme, inside zone, outside zone. It all complements very well. It's designed it's the highest level of run game design in the world. So there's a lot of challenges that they present through that. They have answers built in with everything that they do. So, whatever you give them, they're going to say, "Hey, this is our answer," and they have their checklist of what they want to get to. But it is elite in the run game, and then the pass game is very well structured as well. And I think you see the result of that with the skill players that they have and a quarterback that knows how to process and get the ball out. Like Kyle Shanahan knows how to attack coverage, and he's attacking coverage within every play. And that quarterback knows if that's the coverage I got, he's taking it, the ball's out on time, the ball is accurate. The routes are ran very well, and if it's not that coverage they want, he knows how to get through his progressions, get the ball out, puts the ball in a spot where it's not catch tackle, but it's catch run because of the accuracy at which he places that football to his underneath options, his check down options, his over the ball options. So very well structured, and it's being executed at a high level right now.
See Matt Prater's video he put out recently about trick shots outside?
I have not.
Pretty impressive.
I'll look for it.
One in a bucket, one off the goalpost, 3 in a row, and one in a net.
Sounds impressive.
You see it every day, don't you?
No, I mean, I haven't really seen him do many things like in my head, what you're describing. I haven't seen a whole bunch of that.
Accuracy is one thing, isn't it?
Accuracy is something you do see on a frequent basis.
Is there anything that he can do that would really impress you anymore?
I don't know. I mean, he's pretty impressive with what the regular job description is, but it's always fun to see what those guys come up with.
With all due respect to a guy like Trey McBride and some of your defensive players, you could make a case for Matt being this team's MVP, couldn't you? In some respects?
It'd be hard for me to say that only because like you feel and see what other guys are doing, and Matt's had a really good year so far, and to say that MVP, I don't know. That's a lot of guys who factor into that, but he certainly had a really good season.
Jeff, we see year in and year out, special teams guys forget to go on the field for a punt or a PAT, or a punt returner muffs a punt, or a bad kick, a shank. How do you?
This has turned into a nightmare question.
Well, we see it, right? We saw one last night, a punt, right? in the
Okay.
game. I mean, how do you keep guys locked in on special teams when they do have other positions and things they have to do?
Yeah, I mean, I did go through all the league tape this morning. We kind of filter out all of those types of things that you're describing, big returns, blocks, like all of those types of things. And it did seem like this was a week, a good week for a bye week, because there were a bunch of those things. But as the weather turns, you start to see some of those things show up. I'm not sure. I mean, we kind of just take it I know it's cliche, but one game at a time, one play at a time, and there's not like a special teams drive. Like offensively, it's, you're going to get, unless you turn it over, you're going to get 3 downs and 4 downs, and our plays are so infrequent that a normal NFL game is 25 to 30 special teams plays, and it's more than double that on offense and defense. So that mentality just kind of gets developed of when it's our time, and we got 1 down to get it right. And that's kind of mentality we've always kind of had. So I'm not sure how to describe like what all goes into that. It's just always the way we talk about it and coach it and try to play it.
And you keep guys locked in, like, you have to go out on punt, or you have to be in there for PAT field goal, right? How do you keep guys' brains locked into that?
It's tough. I mean, I think you just got to – we explain to those guys how important it is to us. And the substitution part of it, if you were to poll our players, they would probably say penalties and substitution are the 2 things that come out of my mouth most frequently and are non-negotiables at times. The substitution stuff, there's times me as a coach, I've got to be on top of it, right? Like, it's 3rd down, we're on defense, this guy's supposed to be in on punt return, trainers just took him off the field, and you got to know who that next guy is. You got to get it communicated. Maybe that guy's on the field, and it's not like there's a break. So being on top of those things certainly is a part of it. But players got to do their part too.
Go ahead.
How much, and you mentioned that it's infrequent that they're out there. It's that one shot most of the time. How much is it then magnified when all of a sudden something that does go wrong?
Well, when big plays happen in the kicking game, there's such a massive change in field position. Whether or not it changes possession or not, some of those plays do that. But when you have a return, say the ball's punted from the 30 and it gets returned back to the 30, it's almost like a turnover, right? So, there's times where you get a penalty. It's a 60-yard punt. There's a penalty at the line of scrimmage, well, it gets tacked on, so it ends up being 70 yards in field position. That's the way I've always kind of thought of it, is the field position aspect when it comes to big plays in the kicking game. It usually has a big factor in wins and losses.
You've been around since Dennis showed up, Dennis Garnick.
Mm-hmm.
What was it when he's an undrafted rookie, and obviously you have a big mass of players that come in every year. What was it that caught your eye about him?
His effort, first of all, once we got to the field. Dennis is a very intelligent person and player. It's real important to him. Even today, he practices and plays like somebody's going to tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, bring your iPad and your playbook. He's never lost that. When you get into the game parts, like there's plenty of players that I've come across that are smart in the meeting room. And there's plenty of guys who give great effort, especially if they're undrafted, because they kind of know, all right, 32 teams said no. So I've got to do something to change somebody's mind. And then you get to the game part of it. And it's about knowing what to do. And that's really what meetings are, how to do it. That's a walkthrough, some practice. And can you do it under pressure? And the guys who can do those 3 things, generally speaking, have careers.
I saw a game, the Rams game the other day on a punt return. Rams, the gunner came up and just screamed bloody murder at the punt returner, and he muffed it. I know that's probably legal to do. Have you ever come across or seen an opposing player or one of your players do that? Just throw the guy completely off by screaming at him.
Yeah, I'm sure I have. I mean, sometimes from the sideline, it's hard to hear the communication that players have. I mean, you see the actions in an animated player with some of those things, but it doesn't happen all that often, because there might be once or twice a game, maybe, where it's a fair catch and the guy's close enough to be doing the things you're describing.
Jeff, you've been through some good seasons here and some not so good seasons here. How much does the record 3-10 wear on you personally? How much does that get to you?
It really doesn't.
Really?
I think at least I'll speak for myself. Like, it's about staying in your lane, doing your job. This is what you got to do on Tuesday. This is what you got to do on Wednesday. This is what you have to do on Thursday. Throughout the days of the week, here's how we need to perform on Sunday. And, I talk to our guys about, there's a standard of play of which we play, and it doesn't matter if we're up, if we're down, if it's the first game of the season, if it's week 18. The standard is the standard. And all of the things that we try and do throughout a given week is all for Sunday, but, there's a development that goes on, with the guys who aren't playing, the guys who are on the practice squad. And I think it's challenging as a coach, and challenge is probably the wrong word. I don't think a coach can have the expectations that the guys who aren't in are getting their first opportunity and they've got to play to that standard. I don't think you can have those expectations unless you've invested the time in those players. So I would hope that when a guy gets his chance, he's prepared, he's ready, and can he do it under pressure? But honestly, sure, after you win a game, generally speaking, people are in a better mood, right? If you lose a game, you realize all the work that went into that, and we just didn't get it done. But, come Monday, after we watched the tape and graded it and met with the players, it's on to the next one.
You mentioned looking at stuff from around the league. How impressed are you with what the kicker in Dallas is doing?
Yeah, I saw his stats. I'd never seen him kick before we played Dallas earlier in the season. And it's real impressive for any player to have that season, let alone a guy who's first year kicking in the NFL.
Coming up the bye, 4 games left. What's your message to the unit, or what are the boxes that you want to see checked?
Same thing every week. I mean, honestly, it's our footwork good on punt? Are we doing the right things in the return game with our blocking techniques? Are we catching the ball clean? Is the communication good? There's schematic stuff that we do, and there's areas we certainly need to improve on. There's certain areas that we need to continue to play at a high level, but it's about going 1-0 this week, and the same will be true the next week.